The popular game of cards originated in ancient India and was known as Patram. It was one of the favorite pastimes of Indians in ancient times. This game was patronized especially by the royalty and nobility. In medieval India, playing cards was known as Ganjifa cards, which were played in practically all royal courts. This game is recorded to have been played in Rajputana, Kashyapa Meru, which is Kashmir, Utkala, which is Orissa, the Deccan, and even in Nepal. The Mughals also patronized this game, but the Mughal card sets differed from those of the ancient Indian royal courts. According to Abu Fazl, who was the author of the Ain-e-Akbari, in the description of the game, the following cards were used. The first was Ashwapati, which means Lord of Horses. The Ashwapati, which was the highest card in the pack, represented the picture of the king on horseback. The second highest card represented a general, Senapati, on horseback. After this card came 10 other with pictures of horses from 1 to 10. Another set of cards had the Gajapati, the Lord of Elephants, which represented the king whose power lay in the number of elephants. The other 11 cards in this pack represented the Senapati and 10 others with a soldier astride an elephant. Another pack has the Narapati, a king whose power lies in his infantry. We also had other cards known as the Dhanapati, the Lord of Treasures, Dalapati, the Lord of Squadron, Navapati, the Lord of the Navy, Surapati, the Lord of Divinities, Asrapati, Lord of Shini, Vanapati, the King of the Forest, and Ahipati, Lord of Snakes, etc. On the authority of Abu Fazl, we can say that the game of playing cards had been invented by sages in ancient times who took the number 12 as the basis and made a set of 12 cards. Every king had 11 followers, thus a pack had 144 cards. The Mughals retained 12 sets having 96 cards. Cards were known as Patram in ancient India. These cards were made of cloth and depicted motifs from the Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. A tradition carried on today with floral motifs and natural scenery. The pre-Mughal origin of the game of cards is evident if we examine the pattern of painting of cards. We also find that despite the observation of Abu Fazl that Akbar introduced the pack with 8 sets, we find that even earlier in Indian courts we have packs with 8, 9 and 10 sets apart from the usual 12. The numbers were derived from the 8 cardinal directions for the pack, from the 9 planets Navagraha for the one with 9 sets, and from 10 incarnations Dashavatara of Sri Vishnu for the pack with 10 sets. Themes from the Ramayana and Mahabharata are painted on these cards. The largest number of such cards are to be found in Orissa. The painters from Orissa have represented various illustrations like the Navagunjara, an animal which was the form assumed by Sri Krishna to test Arjun's fidelity. Illustrations from the Dashavatara of Sri Vishnu are also portrayed and found in Orissa. All these cards were handmade and were painted in the traditional style. The kings usually commissioned painters to make cards as per their preference. The commoners got their cards made by local artists who were to be found in urban and rural areas. In order to obtain the required thickness, a number of sheets of pieces of cloth were glued together. The outlines of the rim were painted in black and then the figures were filled with colors. As cards were played by members of all strata of society, we find different types of cards. Some cards were also made of ivory, tortoise shell, mother of pearl, inlaid with precious metals. The cards were of different shapes. They were circular, oval, rectangular, but the circular cards were more common. The cards were usually kept in a wooden box with a lid painted with historic figures. This art of handmade, hand-painted cards, which had survived for hundreds of years, gradually failed to decay and became extinct with the introduction of printed paper cards by the Europeans in 17th and 18th centuries. With the extension of the art of making and painting cards, also was erased the memory that Indians ever had played the game of cards with their own specific representations of the Narapati, Gajapati, and Ashwapati.